Oliveira, Oliveira Lawyers. Today is March the 11th, and we are starting one more live stream at 12:31 Rio de Janeiro time. As usual, if you're here with us, you have a priority to suggest topics of your interest to be discussed. Just a heads up, we cannot provide live consultations, so avoid sharing a fact pattern that would not allow us to discuss your case in details. But again, we can discuss pretty much any topics in general. And let's start by taking a look at news in Brazil. And we are taking a look at the Jornal Estadão. And surprise, surprise, today we're not going to be talking about Banco Master. And very interesting, the reason for that. The reason for that is because Iran is saying they are no longer going to participate in the World Cup that is going to take place in the United States. And, to me, that's very telling because the, U.S.-Iran war, is typically subject to a second level news on the Brazilian newspapers. But because this time is about soccer, it is bumping the war, to the first headline on our newspaper, right? And as many of you can probably tell, Brazil is big in soccer. So, the fact that Iran is not going to participate in the World Cup is indeed like a major topic of conversation for Brazilians. Pretty interesting. Another interesting distinction is how we pronounce Iran, and in Brazil we say Iran, okay, and in Portugal is different. We say Irão. So Brazil, Iran, and in Portugal, Irão. I'm more used to the Brazilian pronunciation, Iran, and Irão. It sounds to me like it is Iran, but bigger, because we use the as a termination, indicating something that is very big, right? So again, Iran in Brazil, Irão in Portugal, and Iran in the US. All right, so sharing about that. Another topic of your interest, and that's a somewhat recurring subject here in our live streams, is about labor law in Brazil. And now there is a proposal to reduce what is called the 6x1 pattern of work, if you will. And it means that, employees, they would no longer be allowed to work 6 days per week. They should work a maximum of 5 days. And there is a lot of dispute, between, of course, the employers and the government. Many people say that the government is just using that, to kind of increase the number of voters for the current federal administration. Other people, they say, listen, it doesn't make sense anymore for people to work 6 days a week. And many employers are going to say, listen, this is something that could be discussed on a case-by-case basis, and this is becoming also a big topic in Brazil. Here at the firm, we just work 5 days a week, and it has been like that for, pretty much forever, right? And this is actually typical, I think, of professional services in Brazil, just like it is in the United States, right? So in the US, you don't see law firms working during weekends. Of course, if a lawyer has something time sensitive, they're going to work over the weekend, but they're not going to show up at the office, right? So in Brazil, it's pretty much the same thing. No law firm, as far as I know, would make people, show up on a Saturday or a Sunday. But it's very common, for instance, right, in our office buildings in São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, Florianópolis, and Brasilia, they are all the same. So they're going to open from Monday to Friday, and then on Saturday, they're going to open just during the morning. And so this is very typical for many professions, if you will, and this is going to be more specific, like to people working at the entrance of the building, right? So if you have a doorman, if you have like a doorman station, the doorman is going to work typically from Monday to Friday, and then on Saturdays they are going to work during the morning. And very interesting, this is not only for business buildings, but for instance, in Leblon, Rio de Janeiro, like an upscale neighborhood, very common for you to see the same pattern, right? So there's going to be a doorman working from Monday to Friday, typically from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. or 9 a.m. To 6 p.m. And then they are going to show up on Saturday as well, typically starting 8 a.m. To noon or 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Okay, and now, this piece of news, the idea here is that the employers, they are no longer be able to keep like employees working like for the 6th day. All right. And very interesting, like when you see here, like the red color is the red of the current party in power, right? It's the President Lula's party, PT or PT, right? PT means like Partido dos Trabalhadores, or the Workers' Party, right? And that's the main. There are other aspects being discussed, but these are the main ones being discussed in this proposal. All right, let's see if we have any topics of your interest here in our chat. Let's take a look. All right, we have Taura Butterfly. Bom dia, boa tarde, Taura. Let us know if there are any topics of your interest about Brazil, about Portugal for us to discuss. We have Aaron. How's it going, Aaron? Swift from Canada is done in branch only, and Santander, when receiving Canadian dollars, ask for Swift transfers to a bank in Canada. Can you cover the nuances of real estate investor visa requirements, that it has to arrive in a Brazilian account in your name from an account in your name, and so on? Yes, Aaron. Yes. I had a consultation yesterday. I think it was yesterday. Yes, it was yesterday. And there was this couple, like they bought a property. I'm trying to remember where they bought the property. I remember like they were planning to buy a second property. The first one they bought, guess what? They messed up with the currency exchange part. And basically they wasted an opportunity to apply for the real estate investor visa. So yes, I mean, the way you're going to send the money, it should be compliant. And I'm going to tell you the most compliant way for you to send. The most compliant way for you to send is to have the money sent directly from abroad. It must be sent from an account with your name on it. Okay, very common for people to say, well, I have a business, I have a trust, I have whatever you can think of. We heard all. Now, the bank account must be a personal bank account on your name. And why is that? Because they want to make sure that you are the one sending the money. Okay, first, for the purpose of meeting the regulation. The regulation says very clearly that you're going to get residency in Brazil because you are, guess what, bringing money to the country. So if there is another company, if there is another person, you are not really meeting that specific requirement. Second reason is because of bank compliance, and Brazil is pretty picky for historical reasons. They are going to do a very thorough compliance process. And whenever you send the money directly to the seller, that's when the currency exchange bank is going to issue a currency exchange contract mentioning that the money is being sent for the purpose of buying real estate. They write it down. It's a code, right? It's not something colloquial that they're just saying, well, he told me he's going to buy property. No, that's not how it works. They are going to go through all the paperwork, and because they can tell that you're buying a property, they are going to have this specific code tagged to your transaction. So when the currency exchange contract is issued, it is crystal clear to immigration that this money was sent for the purpose of buying real estate. Okay, so that's our recommendation. And whenever people are using our services, we're gonna walk them through this exact process that I told you. All right. Now there is a second approach which is not as compliant. In our understanding, that's when you're gonna send the money from you to yourself, right? So let's assume you have a non-resident bank account today in Brazil, and then you would send the money from Canada to your bank account in Brazil. When you do so, guess what? The currency exchange contract that's gonna be issued is not gonna have, the mention or the code that I told you, money to buy real estate. Instead, most of the time is going to have availability, okay? And availability, again, not a colloquial term, is actually an industry term, like when you have money available and you send the money from you to yourself. And again, when the immigration is going to read the paperwork is not going to say money to buy real estate. So guess what? Not ideal, right? Now, this said, in more than one case, cases in which people wanted to buy properties on their own and then came back to us, to help just with this part, right? Like people want to pay as little as possible. And I understand that. But they are going to come to us with this paperwork, and then we're going to say, listen, we can, take a shot, but is not guaranteed. The cases in which we saw working, even though they have not sent the money directly to the seller, are cases in which they sent money first off, like through a wire transfer, meaning in a compliant manner. And second, they sent this money in a date close to the purchase of real estate. So even though the immigration analysts, they could see that the money was not showing money to buy real estate on the paperwork because of the fact pattern, the analysts, I would say, maybe would turn a blind eye to the fact that you sent the money to yourself. All right. So this is the most fundamental aspects of sending money to buy real estate in Brazil for the purpose of the real estate investor visa. Now, of course, whenever you send the money directly to the seller, this is going to represent a risk because it's difficult for you to time the release of the funds with the day of the closing, right? So if you're doing this by yourself, it's pretty difficult for you to accomplish that. And when you work with us, what we do, we have 4 different currency exchange banks that are formal partners of the firm, and they are going to park your money until the day of the closing, right? So here, in addition to following up the dynamic exactly by the books for the purpose of the real estate investor visa, we also try to emulate an escrow, reducing your risk in the transaction. All right, I hope that was helpful, Aaron. Why, muito obrigado, Luciano and Atlas. This is Christy. I was approved for my visa and have my RNM. So great news. Thank you for sharing. Your process was simple and stress-free. I recommend everyone to use it. Well, that's much appreciated. Much appreciated. Thank you so much, Christy. All right, thank you for sharing. And let me know what else you have in your plans, Christy. I'm sure you have, great plans for Brazil. Let us know your plans and topics of your interest so we can discuss here live. Tora, boa tarde. Boa tarde, Tora. I'm waiting to get my retirement visa for Brazil. I'm wondering, once I start the process, will I need to be staying in Brazil without leaving for a while, and for how long? Tora, this is going to depend on which track you are pursuing. There are, from a high-level perspective, 2 separate tracks. One track is applying through a consulate, and the second track is going to be applying while physically in Brazil, okay? And these tracks, they are going to have different timelines. They are going to have slightly different requirements, and they are going to, result in different journeys for you. So if you tell me if you're planning to apply through a consulate or while physically in Brazil, that's going to help me give you an idea about the timeline. But maybe just so we don't keep you hanging, let me tell you how it works typically in Brazil. So whenever someone tells us, like, I want to start this journey, we recommend then to start the document gathering at least a couple of months before coming to Brazil, right? And the reason for doing so is because some of the documents are going to be much easier for you to obtain if you are still in your country of origin, right? Once you come to Brazil, then you're no longer in your country of origin, and things naturally are not going to be as easy as they would be otherwise. So 2 months before coming to Brazil, we start the work, and hopefully when you come to Brazil, we're going to be very close to filing your application. Once you file your application, nowadays it's taking about a month and a half for the Brazilian immigration to review your application. Everything is good. They are going to give you a conditional approval. And after this conditional approval, we need to wait 10 days to schedule your appointment. Now, the appointment is going to require you to be in person in Brazil. But between the time of application and this appointment, it is fine for you to travel abroad. I mean, to come back to your country of origin, even though we don't typically recommend you to do so. But many clients, they have a business, they have, other stuff going on, so they end up going back to their country of origins. Now, in terms of scheduling this appointment, after we are allowed to do so, is going to vary substantially depending on the location in which you are based, right? So Rio de Janeiro, many times you can get an appointment for the next month. São Paulo is getting, like busier and busier, so it may be a couple of months down the line. And in Santa Catarina, is one of the worst states as we speak. And many times we're going to get an appointment like 3 months down the line. And as long as you have enough allowance to stay in Brazil or to re-enter Brazil, you could, in theory, have us filing for the retirement residency because we're filing in Brazil. And then in this meantime, you could go back, I don't know, to the US, Europe, whatever, in whatever place you live, and then come back just for the appointment, all right? And so this timeline between being in Brazil for us to file and the appointment, it could be anywhere, I would say, from 3 to 6 months. And again, in this time, you could be outside of Brazil, Tora. Now, don't rely too much on what I told you because this may change according to your specifics. So if you're working on a timeline, my recommendation is for you to book a consultation so we can go over your particulars and advise you accordingly. All right, Churin Mitchell, good morning. I will contact you in a few days to make a consult appointment. Glad to hear, Churin, and glad to see you showing up. Tora, I would like to apply while in Brazil. Yeah, so that's what we discussed, Tora, and that's typically the main choice for applicants. Reason being, if you apply through a consulate, from a requirements perspective, you should have a health insurance, not travel insurance. I'm saying health insurance with coverage in Brazil. And if you're going to buy, from companies out there, you're going to buy a for gringo health insurance that is typically very expensive. It could easily cost a few $1,000s just the health insurance, right? So if you have it, you have it. And then you are welcome to apply through a consulate. But if you don't have it, our typical recommendation is for you to apply physically in Brazil. And when you are physically in Brazil, you don't need the health insurance. Of course, health insurance is important, but our strategy is for you to first apply. And once you get the resident card, then you most probably will have access to the same health insurances that we have as Brazilians. They are cheaper and they are actually accepted by health service providers. Okay, so that's our strategy, right? If you don't have it, don't get it, apply while you're in Brazil. They are not going to ask you for it. Once you get the resident card, then yes, you got to go and buy your health insurance, right? Like, I mean, I don't think anyone would like to stay in a place without health insurance, even though in Brazil, like we have the so-called universal health care, but you know the quality of the service is typically not amenable to most foreign citizens. All right, it is, let's say, it is there for an emergency, if you will, but it's not the type of service that you're gonna be wanting to use for the longer term. All right, Cheering. We said welcome, Cheering. We have Tora. I had a few consultations with your firm already. Yes, glad to hear, Tora. Once I were to get a retirement visa, I'm required to also stay in Brazil for certain periods of time. Thank you for your wonderful explanation. You're pretty welcome, Tora, and keep showing up, right? Just so you know, there is no limit to your participation here at the live stream. And before anyone has the wrong impression in terms of our consultations, typically we provide consultations at a loss, right? So people think, well, you know, like they probably want me to go there and book a consultation and pay for it. No, we don't. Like, we want you to hire our service. And consultations, they are typically provided at a loss. So you're more than welcome to keep coming here to the live stream. You don't need to schedule additional consultations. Sorry, you're pretty welcome to come over here, and to the maximum extent permitted by the Bar Association, I'm going to try to answer your questions. Right? Like, I just need to keep it in general and avoid getting to a point in which they're going to look like a consultation without charging. But I think we can do a reasonable job in terms of sharing, you know, requirements and major aspects of your journey without getting in trouble. Okay, but yeah, so in terms of staying to keep, there is no language, right? Like when you read the real estate investor visa or residency, I think is Resolução Normativa número 40, or, you know, the regulation number 40 from the CENIG Immigration Authority. And if you read it, if you go over like every single provision, there is no language saying that you need to stay for a certain time. So whenever we have clients asking about that, we say, listen, try to stay for at least a month in Brazil to have a somewhat meaningful presence. Okay, but so far we never had a case in which the applicant was refused a renewal because of staying too little time in Brazil. All right, Tara. So there is no language in the regulation. There is no case decision that could help us answer. So, our recommendation is stay at least a month during the course of your Brazil retirement residency. Hi, it's Chrissy again. Hi, Chrissy. What banks or financial or online institutions do you recommend for those with a retirement visa, and why? Especially if the ultimate goal is to purchase or build a home. Chrissy, so something very unique to Brazil. You have like two different status for you as a taxpayer, and this is gonna impact your access to bank accounts in Brazil. So when you start your journey, let's say you're using our service, right? We're gonna get you a CPF, like the Brazilian Tax ID, typically under the tag of a tax resident, meaning that you don't have an obligation to file taxes in Brazil, and you're not going to pay taxes over your global income. That's the beginning of your journey, all right? Now, down the line, once you are living in Brazil, once you get one of the triggers for tax residency, then yes, you're going to become a tax resident, and then your CPF should be updated to reflect your taxpayer status as a resident. And those two different tax status, they are going to dictate the type of bank accounts that you're going to be allowed to use. So as of today, let's assume that Tora is not a tax resident, is not a resident, is just getting started on its journey, right? So from that perspective, you only have access to non-resident bank accounts, all right? And if we're talking about non-resident bank accounts, the two banks that are typically well-known, they are going to be Banco Rendimento and BTG, okay? I'm going to write over here, banks known in Brazil as providers of non-resident bank accounts to foreign citizens. All right, and I'm not recommending you to get them. I'm just sharing that you have those options. All right, and BTG, right? So it's in the chat window now. So that's for non-residents, right? So if you start your journey, as of today, you can typically get a bank account with those two banks. There are others, but I'm not going to tell you all of them. Those two, they are kind of solid options. And again, like you should have someone advising on which one to get. Now, after you upgrade or you change your CPF status to resident, then guess what? You are going to be able to open a more traditional bank account. And then you're not going to need to do banking with those two banks. You're going to be able to access more traditional banks we have in Brazil. There is a digital one. It's well known as we speak. It's Nubank. And like the brick and mortar options are going to be, the ones I typically recommend are going to be either Itaú or Santander, right? These are two banks I like. I've been a client for Bradesco for over 30 years, maybe 35 years by now. But Bradesco, I don't know. They're too conservative, and they, because of their approach to things, they are kind of behind of these other banks in many fronts. So the ones I typically recommend for a traditional bank account are going to be Itaú and Santander, all right? And yes, these are four of the options. And you just need to keep in mind, there will be like two separate stages of your journey. A journey before you become a tax resident, in which you are limited to the non-resident bank accounts. After you become a resident, both legally from an immigration perspective and tax wise, that's when you're going to be able to access like these everyday bank accounts. All right. I hope that makes sense, Tora. Oh, sorry, that was Chrissy. I hope that makes sense, Christy. Matt Gaines. Good morning, Dr. Oliveira and chat participants. Good morning, Matt, and I hope you and Adrian are well. I'm about 1 year away from moving to Brazil. I'd like to know what your clients are using to learn Portuguese. Matt, that's not like a topic we discuss much during our consultations, but they typically use, I think there is an app, right? There is an app, it's a very famous app. I think pretty much everyone is going to use the app. They have a kind of logo with an all, right? And That's something that we hear recurrently in terms of how they, try to approach learning the language. But there are also multiple websites offering lessons online. So basically, you pay for a package. Let's say you pay for a package of 5 lessons or 10 lessons, and then you're going to meet an instructor. You're going to meet like a teacher, if you will, online, over, in the past it would be over Skype. Now Skype is gone. It could be over Zoom. It could be over Google Meets. It could be, over Microsoft Teams. But that's another strategy, right? I personally like the lessons with, this kind of video conference approach. Because as you probably know, communication goes well beyond the speech. So when you can see the other person, I think it does help with your learning process. All right. Now, this said, Matt, I think the best opportunity for you to learn is going to occur when you are in Brazil, because when you are in Brazil, then you're going to be exposed like to everyday situations. Like you're going to go to the padaria, right, which means the bakery. Is not the same thing, right? Like for those of you who know padarias, it is well beyond a bakery. Padaria is something major for us Brazilians. And by the way, it came from Portugal, right? So there are really nice padarias in Portugal. Interesting to note, the Brazilian padarias, they are typically larger, and I don't know if I can say better. That's a matter of preference, but they're certainly bigger in general than the padarias in Portugal, okay? But this is just part of your everyday life. Once you go to a padaria, to a bakery, you go to the supermarket, you're going to go, I don't know, to a store at the mall, you're going to have interactions. And from those interactions, you're going to learn how to speak Portuguese in real life. Because whenever you're learning like from an instructor, of course, they're going to bring something structured for you to follow, and that's good for you to understand, right? Like the dynamics, the rules of the language. But many times what we see is like a distance between whatever it is in that program and the way that we speak in everyday situations. Okay, and I think that may be the case for all the languages, but I remember, I think it's Duolingo. Duolingo is the name of the app. Duolingo, right? Duolingo or something like this, that's the name of the app. Now, in terms of websites for you to secure, packages of lessons, there are different providers, and then my recommendation is like once you have a short list, you can run by Trustpilot. Or like Google reviews, and then you can based on what people tell you, what people say about those providers, make a decision. You don't also need to secure a really long-term type of package. Maybe buy just 5 lessons and see how it works, and if you like the style, if you like the structure, then you can settle for that provider, or maybe try a few different structures until you pick the one that works best for you. All right, Aaron, I just got dental work done. My dentist spoke English, did better work than I received in Canada, and it cost 3,000 reais. In Canada, it would have been over 12,000. Non-SUS is great. Yes, Aaron. Like, I mean, I see that situation, and it is very bugging to me to understand or accommodate the idea that at least private health service providers in Brazil, they tend to be much better than they are in the United States. I don't know. Like, I mean, it is something that I'm always checking. My reasoning, trying to understand, maybe I'm being partial to Brazil, but dentist-wise, I mean, it looks like a no-brainer. Dentists in the U.S., in my opinion, right? Like, I mean, they are not nearly comparable to dentists in Brazil. dentists in Brazil being way superior in terms of professional quality, in terms of how they are gonna care about your teeth, and the cost is like a fraction of what you would pay in the U.S. Actually, I think for some specialties, for some health service specialties, people are gonna travel from the U.S. to Brazil, not because they wanna live in Brazil or they wanna have anything to do with Brazil, but just so they can enjoy the health services in Brazil for a fraction of the cost that you would pay in the United States. Very interesting nuance, Aaron. All right, Matt Gaines, I'm currently using Rosetta Stone. Yes, Rosetta is also pretty big, right? Matt, thank you for sharing. And how is it going? Like, I mean, do you feel like you're learning? Have you tried Duolingo? Like, I would be interested in knowing how Rosetta compares to Duolingo. Maybe Rosetta is more structured, right? Duolingo, I think it started as an app, and Rosetta was something offline that it may have migrated to the app environment, right? So let us know, Matt, if you have tried also Duolingo as well, and how your experience has been so far with Rosetta. Gemas, what are your thoughts about moving to Recife from the U.S. compared to other parts of Brazil? Want to get your opinion as a Brazilian. Gemas, so yes, I mean Recife is pretty nice. It is in the northeast of Brazil, and it does share a lot of in common with the other capitals of Brazil, such as Fortaleza, Natal, right, João Pessoa, and something that I think is specific to Recife. They were testing, or they were developing something like a digital nomad slash entrepreneurship program, and so they were trying to get really high quality like internet and computer access through Fall Recife, right? So if access to quality internet is important to you, Recife could be a good choice. Now, talking about quality of internet, something that also bugs me a lot is the quality of internet in Rio de Janeiro. I mean, it is just weird, right? Like how bad internet can be in Rio de Janeiro. Leblon, right? Like, I mean, the top neighborhood in the south zone of Rio de Janeiro has recurring issues of internet. You get offline and sometimes you are online, but the ping is just too big in terms of milliseconds. So you're gonna have delays. You're gonna have disruptions through your video conference calls. It is just weird. And even in downtown, in which we have our office, many times I do have connectivity issues in Rio de Janeiro, and it is just mind-blowing. Okay, now you don't have that in São Paulo. I'm not saying that São Paulo is free of issues, but I don't know. I think it is 10 times better than Rio de Janeiro. So Recife, to be honest with you, I don't stay much in Recife, but I would expect for internet connectivity to be better in Recife than it is in Rio de Janeiro. Okay, another thought here, Jamaska, is that you could also check out other capitals in the Northeast, because if you are familiar with Recife and you like Recife, guess what? Chances are you could also like the other capitals, and then maybe you can compare, a few capitals before you're gonna settle on a certain destination. So Recife, pretty solid choice. It is growing. Some very good administrations in terms of developing infrastructure for the city. Real estate typically appreciating in value. So solid choice, Jamaska. All right, Tora, when getting the birth certificate apostille, do I do this through the state I was born or if I now live in a different state? Tora, yes, this is something very specific, but I can answer because it's not like a legal concept. In my understanding, it's more like, a cartorio or, a notary type of thing. And you do need the apostille from the state in which the birth certificate was issued. The concept behind an apostille, Tora, is that someone is going to say this document is legitimate. And if I was born in California, how could New York tell that my birth certificate is legitimate or not? Naturally, New York is not going to be able to do so. So if I was born in California, guess what? I'm going to need to go to the Secretary of State, right? That's going to be either in Sacramento, the capital of California, or in Los Angeles, right? Like they have a couple of options. Just because California is such a long state, so you can pick, either Sacramento, which is way in the north, or you can go to Los Angeles, right? Same thing, similar in New York. New York, you can get an apostille done either in Albany or you can do it in the financial district in New York City. Now, Tora, most people, they are not going to do this process by themselves. It's just inconvenient for you to go places and spend time and learn the process, by the way. So most of our clients, they are going to leave the legwork for someone else. We do assist, particularly for clients in the US, we do assist with apostille typically. So if you're planning to hire our service, I think you would be better off, waiting to handle those things, right? And I see many clients like they say, listen, I want to have everything in place to hire, but the sequence is not like that. The sequence is exactly the opposite. First, you hire us, and then you're going to tackle the documents because then you have someone just right there to answer questions, to review the documents that you're getting, and avoiding costly mistakes in terms of producing the required paperwork, if you will. All right, Tora, I do have a CPF already, but since getting, I changed my first name on my U.S. passport and ID. Can I change my first name on my Brazilian CPF now? All right, I changed my first name on my U.S. passport and ID. Tora, you're going to need to produce paperwork explaining the change, and this is also potentially relevant for your residency application journey. Brazil is pretty strict. It's not like the U.S. In the U.S., very common for people to have one name and use something else, and then, they change very easily. It's not like that in Brazil. So if you have inconsistency in terms of birth certificate, marriage certificate, your passport, you need to be prepared in terms of showing paperwork explaining these name changes. And it's not like any paperwork. It should be, of course, legal paperwork. And we typically advise our clients to get an apostille on whatever document is going to support legally the name change. All right, Tora. James Rochas, bom dia, James. Welcome to the live. Is it true that after one união estável with a Brazilian woman, I get to apply for Brazilian PR and passport? Obrigado, amigo. Yeah, so after one união, all right, now I get it. After 1 year, right? It's missing the year over here. After 1 year in união estável with a Brazilian woman, I get to apply for Brazilian PR and passport. James, so, the união estável, it's somewhat tricky. It has been tricky, since its inception, and it's become trickier since last July. Last year, there was a big operation by the Brazilian Federal Police. They were chasing people like, the fraud in the immigration system in terms of, using like fake stable union situations, right? Like to secure residency in Brazil. They even arrested lawyers. None that I know personally, right? Like, I mean, for a lawyer to be arrested in Brazil, that's a terrible sign because, like Brazilian standards, I would say they are not as tough as they would probably be in the US, like from a criminal law perspective. But I'm just sharing that, stable union typically is going to trigger increased scrutiny, okay? But now this said, let's say if you do have a legitimate união estável, Polícia Federal, the Brazilian Federal Police, they can, sometimes go check on your address if you are there or not, if there is a legitimate situation. Nowadays, in addition to the paperwork for the união estável, they are going to ask additional evidence of a relationship, like a common lease, a joint bank account on both names. They, the Brazilian Federal Police, they know the tricks, right? So they are going to be very strict in terms of the evidence. But if your stable union, meets all of those requirements, in theory, you would get the permanent residency right off the bat. So it's actually not a year down the line. It's like from the get-go, all right? So the get-go, the permanent residency. What you can take a shot 1 year down the line after you secure the permanent residency, it would be the application for Brazilian citizenship, okay? And, that may be very surprising to many of you, but in Brazil, because of some issues we have with our legal system nowadays, stable union and marriage, they are pretty much on the same level, and they should not be, right? Because if someone marries, it's different from someone joining in a stable union. But guess what? Because of a certain reality of the Brazilian legal system, more specifically the judges, the way that they interpret the law, those two things are pretty leveled nowadays. And therefore, if you have a união estável, the dynamics of the residency and the citizenship, they are going to be somewhat similar to the dynamics of a married couple. All right, Matt Gaines, I like Rosetta Stone and enjoy the lessons. Adrian says that I'm doing good. Yeah, I tried Babbel, but I did not like it. I have not tried Duolingo. Yeah, nice sharing. Good to know, Matt, that Rosetta Stone is working solidly. Nice sharing. All right, General Principal. Welcome, General Principal. Boa tarde, Senhor Oliveira and chat room. At Matt Gaines, I'm also on a Portuguese journey. Pinsler helped me with pronunciation, especially the nasal sounds. That sounds pretty advanced, General Principal. Thank you for sharing. Matt is thanking General Principal. So nice, to share your findings. All right. We have, I think it's Christy. How or where can I check if my CPF is non-resident or resident status? Chrissy, if you go to a bank, right? Let's say if you go to a bank and you try to apply for a regular account, they would probably tell you if the CPF is a non-resident CPF. Or you can also send an inquiry to one of the departments of the Brazilian Revenue Service in Brazil. They have email addresses for what we call regionals, and these regionals, they typically could check and let you know, all right? So if you try to get like a few email addresses from the Brazilian Revenue Service, if you send your CPF and you say, listen, I'm basically trying to understand if this is recorded as a non-resident or a resident CPF, they would potentially tell you, right? Like they may ask you for evidence that you are the card holder, and they may assist you from that perspective, Christy. Kish, is there a certain amount of money needed to retain your service? Kish, there is no certain amount of money. We don't typically work with retainers, right? Like some offices, they say, well, you're going to deposit, I don't know, $2,000, And we actually work more on flat fees. So it depends on what you're looking for, right? Like if you're gonna work, for instance, with the retirement visa / residency, I think, right, because I don't work as closely in our sales / business development, but I think it's somewhat around $1,250 for the service, right? And then naturally, that's the amount that you should have for us to work with you on the Brazil retirement residency or visa. So it depends on pretty much what you're gonna be pursuing, and that's how we're gonna set like the applicable professional fees. All right, Kish. Tora, I would like to hire a firm to go forward with the visa process. Please send me what I need to start with your firm. Thank you. Yeah, Tora. Tora, I think you said you had a consult with us already, because the sequence, right? And I'm gonna write over here our onboarding email, and that could be of help to Kish as well. So Kish and Tora, you can basically just send an email to this address and say, listen, I want to get started with the Brazil retirement visa, right? And then we're gonna reply. We typically reply in a couple of hours during business days / hours. So if you send an email now, like in a couple of hours, you would have the next step to get started with us. All right, and the person who's going to typically respond is going to be Justin Castillo. I know the name Justin in the U.S. means like a man, but she's a lady. Okay, Justin is a lady. It's not Justine like some clients. I don't know if they try to be nice, or I don't know. They call her Justine. It's Justin, and Justin will get you like in just a couple of hours what you need to be doing next. And of course, we would be very glad to assist you, Kish, and to assist you, Tora. All right? Matt Gaines, who would apostille a name change court judgment in the U.S. These are done by a county circuit court. So in the U.S., yes, it would be typically a county court, okay, a county court. So, like if you are in Dallas, like we have about 100 different courts, and some of the courts, they are going to be addressing, right? Like, family matter law or, name change, and they would be able to adjudicate a name change. But, if you have a name change already in the past, then basically you just need to know which court has decided. Most states, I'm more familiar with California and Texas. You can basically just go to the website. I don't know if it is, let's say, the 94th District Court in Dallas. You basically search, and you're gonna see typically on the homepage for that particular court, there's gonna be an email or a phone number for the court clerk. And then you can basically just write a message or call the court clerk and say, listen, I have this case, here's the case number, I need certified records. They are going to give you a price. You can then send a certified check or a regular check, I don't know, it depends on the court. Once they have your payment, they are going to issue those records in a certified manner. And this, certified records can then be apostilled naturally in the same state in which the records were issued. All right, Matt? Kish, obrigada, Sr. Oliveira. You're pretty welcome, Kish. Tora, yes, I had 2 consultations with your firm. I sent an email to Justin last night, so I will look for her reply. Obrigada. Yeah, thank you for sharing, Tora. I'm gonna, give a heads up here to Justin that you are on the lookout. All right. And okay, so let's see if we have anything else. It looks like we are on top of all the questions that were shared all the topics of your interest, some nice sharings by team members in terms of learning Portuguese. Now I wanna talk with you about, first, let's just remember about our real estate partner. That's Remax, right? Remax is pretty known by U.S. citizens, but not only in the U.S. but also in Europe, and even like in the Middle East, right? Like Dubai has many Remax stores. This one is actually in Leblon, Rio de Janeiro. They work with us on some joint clients, and if you're looking for some listings, you can contact them using the information right there. All right, and now talking about our next live stream. Our next live stream is not gonna be on Wednesday. It's gonna be on the following Sunday. So we're gonna be skipping our live stream on the 18th. So we're not gonna be live on March the 18th. We're gonna be live. We're gonna be together on March the 22nd, and March the 22nd is going to be our second Sunday in the month of March, and that's what we are aiming to. We are trying to get almost every Wednesdays per month, and we are trying to get you guys a couple of Sundays per month. All right, so again, we're not meeting this Sunday. We're not meeting on the 18th, which is going to be next Wednesday. We're going to be meeting on the Sunday after Wednesday, all right? Okay, so that's it for today. I want to say thank you for your participation, thank you for your sharing, and wishing you a blessed rest